Good morning. Welcome to the Ryan Beardy live stream. Today is Saturday, December 17th, and we're approaching one of my favorite streams of the year, what's turning out to be one of my favorites. I did it for the first time last year. We ranked every game that I played for the first time in 2021 and ranked them by more so my enjoyment and surprise rather than like what I think was the best and the worst. And I wanted to do the same thing this year too. My rules back then were the games that I played for the first time, and this time that's mostly the case. There's some games that I replayed that I wanted to bring back up. There's some smaller games that aren't one of the the thing is I don't play a lot of games that come out the year that they release. I tend to wait a couple years because they get multiple patches, multiple DLC updates, their season passes, what have you. So there's and as a collector, there's a lot of stuff in my backlog, so I'm always revisiting old games, playing old games for the first time, waiting a couple years, seeing what's good and what's not good, and playing. There's actually a lot of indie games from this year that I hope to get to next year, and some from the previous year too. Good morning, Chuck, how are you? We're going to go over the gaming news also, because now that you're in chat, I know that you posted a few things. The Game Awards happened, so we'll talk about all the announcements in the Game Awards, or at least the ones that I am interested in, or that you may be interested in. And we're going to do something... Ready for Returnal to win the ranking? Well, I did not play... That won the ranking for last year. Let me see if I can find my tier list. We can go over last year's too. Let me see. I actually didn't think about that, going over what we did last year. Yeah, I found it pretty easy. So, Returnal came out last year. Let me confirm that fact, because again, I don't always play games that come out the year. So, Returnal came out last year. It was one of the few games that I played the year it came out, and it was actually at the top of my list. So let me transition here. This was last year's list. The king of the list was Hades. Returnal was actually second, because Hades is a perfect video game. Like, I was surprised with just how amazing of a game Hades is. And spoiler for the gaming news section, they announced a sequel, so I'm really excited for that. So in S tier, we had Hades, Returnal, Metroid Dread, and Tetris Effect. And A, there was Haven. See, this is why, like, I put in order I probably shouldn't have, but this is, like, there's a lot of weird orders. It's things that kind of held my attention and excited me about the year, rather than what I think is, like, critically, like... Because I play a lot of old games. Like, you'll see Final Fantasy VI, but you'll see games like Haven and Nick All-Stars ahead of that. And the main reason that that's the case is because of... I've found a lot of enjoyment out of Nick All-Stars Brawl. It was a game that surprised me. It was just a really fun, simple game to get into that again, it just surprised me. I didn't put a lot of time into the game. I'd love to revisit it after all of the new characters, voice acting, and like smaller updates that they added to the game. Same with something like Haven, was a game that really surprised me. It took the mold of any other turn-based JRPG, which is a genre that I really like, and it did something new with it, with its control schemes, with its theming, things like that. Final Fantasy VI, while a fantastic game, was just something that I knew a lot about going in. So you'll see things like that. Haven, Nick All-Stars, Final Fantasy VI I played for the first time, Deltarune Chapter 2, Devotion, Lost Odyssey, Guilty Gear, SMT4 Apocalypse, Sunset Overdrive, Cadence of Hyrule, Axiom Verge 2 I would love to replay, because I want to kind of like... I would love to do reviews on the first two, or the only two Axiom Verge games, because the first one is really near and dear to me. It came out in a time... We can talk about Digimon too, because I know I told you about it in the past. But Axiom Verge in particular was a game that I was it came at a really important time for me. It was one of the 2 games, Shovel Knight and Axiom Verge, were 2 of the games where I really understood what indie games can be, and those were 2 examples that got put into the spotlight. Metroid was in hiatus with Nintendo, so... And I want to find this, or even like Thomas Happett is the single developer who worked on the entire game. I remembered, I don't know if it was his words or it was just in an interview. It's like, if Nintendo's not going to make a Metroid game, I'm going to make it. And so Axiom Verge was made, and like I really enjoyed it for what it was. Dead Space 3 I found a lot of enjoyment out of, surprisingly. I got to play it with a friend, and because it's less, it was critiqued because it's not the same kind of survival horror as the first 2 games, but I found a lot of enjoyment because like Dead Space's combat is really good. A reason that I like games like Dead Space and Alan Wake, they're survival horror themed, but they also have really unique mechanics. Dead Space being the de-limbing, just because in like normal games, when you shoot the head off of something, it's like equal to more damage. Dead Space took that, flipped it on its side, and was like, yeah, you shot the head, but now these things have like arms and legs and are running even faster at you. So the de-limbing was a very key part of that game, and the combat was really solid in those first 2 games. So while Dead Space 3 didn't focus on something that I personally liked, I was surprised and I found a lot of enjoyment out of playing it with a friend. I played the original Doom for the first time, Astra's Playroom because I got my PS5 last year. I played Dragon Quest 1 and 2 for the first time, Final Fantasy 1 I did a video on. Water Womb World is a very, very small 15-minute indie game by a person on itch by the name of James with a Y. And they're still making more games, so I'd like to play more of their stuff. I thought I would put this game, small though it may be, on the list, and just to put a little spotlight on it. Back 4 Blood I thought was pretty average. They did a lot of tweaking since I've last played it. Tales of Arise, not my cup of tea, just in terms of like genre, and it's like I played it for the visuals. It was a gorgeous game. It was fun, but for me it wasn't really what I was looking for. Recore I did a video on. It's something that had a lot of problems, but was like interesting combination of ideas, an interesting team behind it, some people who worked on past Metroid games, I believe. And Big B's favorite, Pokemon Cyber Sleuth, which my main concerns with it were, I feel like it was super weirdly grindy. The way that you have to Digivolve and de-Digivolve Digimon back and forth made it a lot grindier than what I'd expect from other games in the series. I felt like, I was just trying to find an entrance into the video game space for Digimon. I have like a lot of nostalgia, though not a lot of memories for like the older Digimon. And so I heard that a lot of the games take on more adult themes or like young adult themes. And I thought it interesting that the series grew with its audience, which is something that Pokemon doesn't do. And I wasn't blown away by any of the characters or the story. I felt the game to be a little too grindy, and I just overall didn't enjoy it in the same way that I enjoyed like some of the other games at the higher ends of the tier list. So like those are my thoughts for Digimon Cyber Sleuth. But that was my list for last year, and I want to do this every year going forward. I'm cataloging all the games that I play so I don't forget. I'm in YouTube now, so some of these games are even getting full YouTube videos talking about my thoughts and reviewing. Lately I've been working on, I spent the past like month or so writing a script for Devil May Cry 4, which I played on my own time, and I started the editing yesterday. I did pretty much only editing yesterday. I'm really happy with how it's turning out. It's going to be what I think is the best written, the best edited, more jokes. Just, I'm getting a lot more comfortable in my writing. So I'm really excited to work on Devil May Cry 4. As far as streaming goes, the next game I announced, I don't think I officially announced, the next game that I'm streaming is Bugsnax. So we have today's stream, which is going to do ranking all of my games that I played 2022. We're going to go over the gaming news. I recently released a new YouTube short on... I'm going to put the link here if you haven't seen it already. Make sure it goes through both chats. It does. I did a YouTube short on Outer Wilds. That's going to be my last video of the year. Then we have the holidays coming up. I want to try to get the Devil May Cry video out before I leave for MagFest. MagFest is in January 5th through the 8th, so it's the first weekend of January. I missed last year because I got COVID right before MagFest. I had to cancel. The year before that, they weren't able to host it because of COVID. So I missed the last 2 years, and I'm really excited to get back to MagFest, just to do some more conventions. I was able to do too many games in the summer, and it was a lot of fun going back to conventions. So I hope it's something that I can continue doing. And we're going to do a tier list of this year. So we're also going to break some new ground. I am going to try to record this in a way that I can edit it to put on the main channel. So we'll take a little breather. I got my water here. I want to take this video. I want to take this stream of this section of the stream and edit it down to a main channel video where I can just cut the interesting parts, do some editing on top, things like that. We'll do a YouTube intro. This is new territory for me, so I'm hopefully going to do it well. The only downside is I'm not going to be playing music while we do this section of it, so I can add it in post. So I don't know of an easy way to do it during. And I think it'll be too choppy, because I think I'm going to be taking out a lot of in-betweens, and I don't want the music to sound choppy. But we'll make it work. We'll do a YouTube intro, just saying what we're doing here today, the games that I've been playing. And then after that, we'll be doing the gaming news. Alright, so there should be no music. I'm keeping it on my side. I'm going to hog all the music, so I have something to listen to. Though I do feel bad. If I figure out a way to do both, I'll do both. But for now... So what we're doing today is we are taking all of the games that I played throughout the year 2022. I don't play a lot of games that release in the year 2022, so my list comprises of a lot of games that released in the past that I'm just now getting to. Couple things from this year. I'm going to rank them based on enjoyment. It's hard to do a YouTube intro. Other people make it look so easy. It'd be nice. I usually do scripts, and I don't have a script in front of me to read on. I can try one more time. This is why we're treading new ground, because it's not always going to work. Maybe I can do it. You know what? I can record a YouTube intro afterwards and plug it in the intro in the beginning, and then I don't have to do it here. That's using our brain. But for the purposes of Twitch, what we're doing today is we are ranking all of the games that I played in the year 2022, including games from previous years. They're going to be ranked more so on enjoyment rather than like a critical opinion of the game. A lot of things that surprise me that are like a pleasant surprise that I wasn't expecting to play within a game will have a lot of weight in this ranking. Less so like mechanically if it's done well or not. It's in the past it's been games that I played for the first time. There in this year there are a couple games that I've played before. So I'm not really following any sort of hard line on what I want to include, just what I've been playing. So I've been playing things like the Uncharted series, I played the entirety of. I played a lot of games for the Less You Know the Better YouTube video that I released. A lot of obscure stuff. Thanks. We'll see how I feel about it. There's a lot of second guessing that goes into like a final editing of it. I played my first Souls game for the first time. Played and finished. I played Dark Souls 3 in the past and I fell out of it. I played the first Dark Souls and fell out of it. I want to play more, but I'll get to that when I get to Sekiro. Played the new Pokemon. I was graciously gifted Pokemon Coliseum this year for my birthday with some friends that chipped in to get me a physical copy of the game. I played that for the first time. Some horror games, some JRPGs, a little bit of everything. So we'll go half in order. If there's anything that kind of... We'll start with Phantasy Star. This was the very first game that I played this year. I wanted to... In 2021, I wanted to revisit... in 2021, I wanted to play a lot of the critically acclaimed or noteworthy JRPGs. Mainly like the first few Final Fantasies, the first few Dragon Quests. Phantasy Star always stuck out to me because one, it's got like a really popular MMO that's still played to this day. But two, it's one of the notable JRPGs mainly because it was on the Genesis rather than the Nintendo and Super Nintendo. So it was interesting not only playing one of the flagship JRPGs in that time period, but it was one of the flagship JRPGs and had a lot more budget and time put to it for the Genesis. It had a sound chip which boosted the sound quality. Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. It's not the Genesis. It's the Master System. So scratch that. This was way before the Genesis. This was the Master System. We got dogs barking. Trying to say hi to each other. So not only did it have higher storage in the cart in order to fit a lot of the, just the size of the game, it had an FM sound chip for the Japanese version that boosted the sound quality from what you, basically like an NES equivalent to a Super Nintendo equivalent was what they did with the sound chip. So it was a lot of hard work fitting a game like that into a Master System cartridge. It was really impressive for the time, and it even held up. You done? No? It even held up for its time. When I played the Sega Ages version, which was released on the Switch, and that version included it included character status on the right side, and it included a map on the right side. You were able to, it included a bestiary, soundtrack, everything like that. So it was the best version of the game to play that's available in it was the best version of the game available to North America. Though I did make a YouTube video about Phantasy Star and my experience with it. And it had a definitive PlayStation 2 version released that is unfortunately lost to time. But Phantasy Star is going to go in B tier. It's going to go right in the middle. It's not getting it. Okay, all right. Then it was probably just the settings. I'll change it between this stream and the next stream. Is there any other thing that is catching my eye that I can pick out? I think I want to start with all of the like really good ones. I feel like Uncharted is going to be easy to do. Outer Wilds, 13 Sentinels, Chrono Trigger I played this year. It's the beginning of this year feels like so so long ago. I think I'll start with Uncharted. Uncharted, I played the entirety of this year. It's funny because I watched a YouTuber by the name of Bricky. I'll link Bricky's channel in the description of this video. Bricky did a complete. Yeah, I'll figure something out. I think there's still some tweaking I can do with my settings. Sorry about that. All right, so where was I? Yeah, so I wanted to go over the Uncharted series because I had watched Bricky's video, and I'll link that in the description of this video. He did an entire retrospective of every main Uncharted game besides the Vita one, of course. And it was done so well that it inspired me to play those games because I had always wanted to play Uncharted, but I didn't have anything to really like put it in my radar. And after watching those videos, like spoilers and all, it was such a convincing video that I still wanted to go play those games, even though I just watched like a 40-minute to an hour video talking about the story in its entirety. All of those games like were surprisingly good. They get better with time, obviously. Like a lot of the shooting and climbing aspects are not so good in 1, improved in 2, improved in 3, improved in 4, and so on. So despite that, I feel like the stories and the character, like you're playing a movie in a video game, and these games have so much production and care in the characters and writing that like I instantly became a fan of Uncharted after playing these games. So the clear step up in quality for me, Uncharted 4 I think was my favorite. I think the hardest ones to rank are they're A tier. Uncharted 1 is A tier, Uncharted 2 is A tier better than 1. Uncharted 3 is tough. I think I like 2 and 3 equally. I think 3 has a lot more flaws that you notice in the writing. There's a villain in Uncharted 3, Talbot. Yeah, so like there's a character in Uncharted 3 that just doesn't make sense within the story. He's got these like supernatural aspects to his character that are just never explained. It was so weird to me. So he's got these like mind control darts that are just not explained. I guess they're like hallucinogen darts. He appears from dead ends and disappears in those dead ends, and the characters comment on it, and like that's that. He gets shot, but like he doesn't get shot, and that's that. Like nothing is explained to me. It's super weird. So like there's a lot of weird things in Uncharted 3. One thing that like might be considered spoilers is they sometimes tease like supernatural aspects in some of these games, and 3 does it in like a really shoehorned kind of way. So I think like the stories and the characters are all really good. They're on par with each other. I think 4 is the only one that's a clear, excuse me. I think 4 is the only one that's like a clear step above the rest. I'm either going to do 4 at like high A tier or S tier. I haven't decided yet. There, that's better. So for now, I'm going to put Uncharted 4 at S tier. The Lost Legacy is also hard to rank. The thing is, they're all like about the same in quality for me. I think 4 is the only one that's a step above the rest because its villains are a lot more interesting. I feel like Uncharted story's weakest moments are with the villains. And with a game like Uncharted 4 that has like a clear improvement over those other games, above a clear improvement in like gameplay, visual quality, just it's a gorgeous video game. It's one of the best that I've ever seen. So Uncharted 4 goes on S tier. I liked it a lot more than the other Uncharted games. I feel like somebody wanting to get into Uncharted but not being able to or not wanting to play all of the games could just play 4 and be content with that. Uh, Outer Wilds. Let's do Outer Wilds. S tier. S tier all the way up. Outer Wilds is one of the best games that I've ever played in recent years. It blew me away. It's crazy how so many YouTubers have been giving it endless praise, and all I needed to be convinced to play it was just for somebody to tell me to play it and, not really tell me anything about it. So whenever Outer Wilds came up in video essays or recommendations or things like that, I completely like turned the rest off, ignored looking at footage, ignored looking at people's opinions, because it's one of those games where the puzzles are so naturally a part of the world that they're in that once you know the answer to the puzzle, you can't play the game twice. Never have I played a game like Outer Wilds with this sense of discovery, with like flying in space from planet to planet, picking up different parts of a puzzle by going to these different planets, and then putting them together to solve the greater puzzle in the world. It was, if this at all, like full stop, if this at all sounds like something you'd be interested in, a puzzle adventure game with such a natural, such a, like a diegetic approach to puzzles. You don't unlock any upgrades, you don't unlock any new equipment. Like everything that's in the game can be solved from the start. And because that's the case, nothing is out of your grasp from the moment that you start playing the game until the very end. So I had a lot of fun playing Outer Wilds. It's probably gonna be, I don't think there, I don't know if there's gonna be anything that'll dethrone it. We'll keep it ambiguous because there's some close contenders on here. Um, hmm. This is gonna be hard. I played a lot of good games this year. Let's do the bad games. So Silent Hill Homecoming goes toward the end. We'll do Amazing Island. Well, they'll not clear, not bad, but not clear. We'll move to the back. We'll talk about Scott Pilgrim. Um, we'll put Monarch there. We'll put Lunar there. I feel like my opinion on Lunar is gonna upset some people. I don't like upsetting people. I just think that's the case. So let's tackle it from down here. Amazing Island was my latest YouTube video, and it was a game that had a lot of charm. It had a really good concept, but not really good execution. You've already upset me with Digimon, the damage is done. Well, I didn't play any Digimon games this year. That also might upset you. But there's nothing that I can rank poorly, so. The shorthand of Amazing Island was it came out in a really earlier time for user-generated, like, creatures. There's a lot of games that I have either played in the past that were just in the like in my conscious. Games like Drawn to Life, games like Scribblenauts, games like Spore. Amazing Island predates all of that. It's a console game, so it's easily accessible. And its art style was really friendly and cartoony and inviting. So it had a lot of really good concepts. The execution was just a glorified minigame collection. They wanted it to be a party game, but the party game mechanics didn't mesh well with the single player mechanics. I had fun playing Amazing Island, but the other thing too is it was a revisit. It was a game that I played in my childhood that I like revisited just to make a video about. The only thing I'm upset about is you not playing Arceus. Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but maybe because I've played and enjoyed Pokemon, maybe I'll go back and play Arceus. We'll see. Amazing Island is probably gonna sit at C or D. I think I'll throw it at C for now and move it on D later. Silent Hill Homecoming. I've played all of the quote good Silent Hill games. I've played Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I thought it was time to broaden my horizons because I found a copy of Silent Hill Homecoming at a one-day convention, picked it up. I now own a copy of Silent Hill Downpour. I haven't played it yet. I just wanted to see what made these games so bad. And I had an average time playing Silent Hill Homecoming. It's a bad Silent Hill game, and it's a average to mediocre horror game, period. I don't think it was terrible. It was bad. The combat was bad. There was a heavy focus on combos, and a lot of combat was either trivialized or was way too complicated. Silent Hill, the earlier Silent Hill games, combat's clunky. I've always made the argument that like tank controls, clunky movement, clunky combat helps to make a better horror game. It means you can't move like you want to, and it makes things scarier. You don't know, like there's a lot more unknowns in like quote unquote like bad control or clunky control than there is if you had like really good movement speed, really good options, really good dodge parry. Um so Silent Hill 2 made you feel weak, but it made you want to avoid combat. Silent Hill Homecoming is like, no, let's do combat. Let's make people do combat. Let's add combos. Let's like keep them in a room with enemies that you gotta fight. And I think that made the game all the worse for it. I think Silent Hill Homecoming would be D. Uh, I guess I can add an F tier, and then I don't know if anything will reach that. Oops, what's going on? F, D, delete. There's an order to this. See, so hold on. Yellow, and then that's one color, and then that's chill. A, B, C, D, E. A, B, C, D, E. Boom. I know the alphabet. We got this. We figure, we command, and we conquer. Okay. I think Silent Hill is good at a D. I'm thinking like, I'm not saying E. It's definitely not E, but I don't think it's good enough to be a C. So Scott Pilgrim, The World, the game, I got to play for the first time, and I got to play it with friends. I'm not the biggest beat 'em up fan. I played River City Girls in the past, and I really enjoyed it. Scott Pilgrim is a very important game. It was the topic of conversation when it was pulled from the Wii Virtual Store, and it was unavailable for some time after that until it got a reprint both physically and on modern consoles digitally, I believe digitally. So I got to play it for the first time recently with some friends, and I think my opinion on beat 'em ups is what's gonna sway my opinion here. Like I had a fine time playing it. I feel like it was really simple compared to something newer like River City Girls, and I don't dislike the Scott Pilgrim IP, but I've never been like super interested in it. So I don't think there was a lot to hold my attention playing the game personally. So it's gonna go on D tier. When I was playing through River City Girls, this is like the only thing I have to make a good comparison because I don't play a lot of these games. I mean, I've played like Simpsons Arcade in the past. I've played a little bit of the TMNT game. There's not a lot of mechanics in Scott Pilgrim. So a lot of like there's a lot of downtime and there's a lot of BS with enemies getting on screen immediately hitting you. There's just like a lot of things that were more frustrating to me than me having fun. So there every time I was playing Scott Pilgrim, there was something that was like dampering my enjoyment of it. So I think it's gonna go on D for now. I just it was important for the time. I'm glad I played it. It's always a good conversation to talk about preserving games. I'm glad that I was able to play it because I never got to play it on the Wii. But as far as the game goes itself, it's just fine. Monarch is a game that I did a video on. It's a I think I said my thoughts well in the video. It's a game that had really good ideas. I don't think it did a lot with those ideas. I think it was also a victim of poor balance, poor mechanics, where and just repeated content in general. It was game like dampered by its runtime. I think they tried to pad out the game too much. It had interesting mechanics, but it had poor balance. It had interesting story and characters, but it had a lot of bloated, repeated sections. So anytime there was something good, there was something bad with it. It's a game that, on its own, I just had a fine time with, but it's a game that I would really look forward to seeing either a sequel or just a new game made by the same team to see if they like learn from their mistakes. So it would either go B or C for me. I'm not trying to compare it to what's otherwise on those lists. I'm trying to see where I would put it. Was it a B or was it a C? This is tough. B or C? I think it's B. I think there's like a lot of good there's like more positives. There's more that I want to be optimistic about, the more I want to be pessimistic about. So I think B is a good place to put it. Lunar Silver Star Story. So I played Chrono Trigger and I played Lunar this year. Games that like specifically the PlayStation version of Lunar that I played came out around the same time as Chrono Trigger. Let's see. Let me make sure I'm right. Chrono Trigger was 95. Lunar PS1 release date 96. Okay, so 96 and then 95. Yeah, okay. Got the years right. So they came out a year apart of each other. Chrono Trigger, obviously well regarded, fantastic. We'll get to that game. But Lunar Silver Star Story was really important for the time because of its kind of like what I talked about with Phantasy Star. It's more an impressive landmark of both visual sound graphics. It was released on originally on the Sega CD, ported to Saturn, and then ported to PlayStation. And it had recorded music, it had recorded voice lines, it had animated cutscenes in the Saturn and PlayStation version that I played. That was really impressive for its time. When it came to the gameplay and the story itself, I thought that the gameplay was way too simplistic. I feel like everybody's playthrough is going to be exactly the same, the way that the characters are, the way that you play the characters. I feel like the story I was going to say was just generic. But the thing is, they reveal a lot more world building and a lot more complexity in the very last act of the game, like way past where I thought the game was gonna like evolve into something else. So I spent most of my playthrough just playing what I thought was a standard JRPG, standard story, impressive sound design, impressive cutscenes, things like that. Um, but it just changed a little too late for me. So playing through it the majority of the time, I had a fine time playing it. I know a lot of people think about it fondly, especially due to how impressive it was at the time. But for me, it's like no better than C or D. I just had a fine time playing it. I think I'll put it at D. Chrono Trigger gotta be S tier. We'll get there. I gotta make you wait. Put it at the front, right? There's a lot of good games I played this year. The Complex Found Footage is a game that I was introduced to through Super Eyepatch Wolf's video on liminal spaces. I'm gonna link that video in the description as well. It's a really good video talking about this community that created content based on liminal spaces, which briefly is like either in between spaces that aren't meant to spend time in. Something like a hotel hallway, something like a parking lot, or a place that's supposed to have people that is absent of people, like an abandoned mall or like an empty airport or something. So there's this community that got propped up by the idea of liminal spaces by making art pieces about it. And it kind of branched off into two separate categories. People who were making these really interesting art pieces using liminal space, and these people that were making horror games based on the idea of liminal space. One focusing really hard into the horror, and one focusing into the surrealness of the idea. And so the Complex Found Footage is a video game that focuses on the surrealness. So it's a scary game, but not because of horror, not because of horror conventions, but because of the oppressive, because of the white noise, because of the heavy footsteps, because of the repeating areas. It's got this really strong sense of unease. And it's a short game. It's about 40 minutes long. It's free on Steam. But it was this really interesting experience being able to walk through these spaces, and the video filters that they put over the game make these areas look so realistic. It blew me away. The visuals blew me away. So while it's a short experience, it was really a memorable experience. I want to put it here on B. Pony Island is a game that I played for The Less You Know The Better. The creator of Pony Island's the creator of Pony Island, Daniel Mullins, also created Inscription, and it's a game that I eventually want to play. I got a physical copy of Inscription pre-ordered. But it's one of the games that uses the medium of like an arcade game as kind of this fourth wall breaking interaction between you and the game itself. It's hard to describe both as an experience and as a game, but let me see if I can do it. I think the main idea of Pony Island is the banter that the game has with the player itself, and it uses your interactions with it as a medium for that interaction. I made it for the video, the less you know, the better. So like I'll kind of leave it at that. My thoughts on it were it was fine. I had some fun with it, but it's not something that really held my attention. So I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna put it here on D tier. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I am really happy I played this game. It was one of the two games that I streamed this year. I streamed Sekiro and Pokemon Colosseum. Now, I talked in the past how I played Dark Souls 1. I didn't stick with it. I played Dark Souls 3. I didn't really stick with it. I still wanted to find an entrance into the Souls-like games, and I thought either Sekiro or Bloodborne was going to be it. I picked Sekiro because I I like how less variety there is in approach than something like Dark Souls, where you have multiple different builds, stat distributions. You have different weapons with different wind up times, damage, things like that. So with Sekiro, the limitation of just using your sword means that the bosses in the world can be better designed around it. And I think I made the right call. I had a lot of fun with Sekiro's combat. Really glad I played it. It's inspiring me to play other Souls games. I think the only thing that held it back was the verticality was really hard to navigate. I don't think they really mastered in previous Souls games you can't jump. So I don't think they really mastered verticality. There was a lot of getting lost in the game just because I wasn't looking up or looking down. And I think it made traversal a bit difficult. But everything else, you're not going to hear a single complaint from me. Sekiro, honestly, I think will be S tier. I think it'll go right here. I'm glad I played Sekiro. It was really good. We're going to come back to Pokemon Violet until I have more games on the list. Ghostwire Tokyo I played because of the really gorgeous interpretation of Tokyo, Japan that was in this game. I don't play or enjoy a lot of open world games, but the virtual tourism that came with Ghostwire Tokyo was really impressive to me. Just how lifelike these areas are and how surreal they feel within Ghostwire Tokyo's like yokai infested world. I feel like everything that the game did gameplay wise was pretty bog standard. I think it was that typical open world, go find X amount of things, pull up the map, see all these different icons on the map and go clear them. Even the combat was pretty simple. You have a small handful of weapons to choose from. Enemies are pretty simple, enemies are pretty similar. There's not a lot of variation. But I think the virtual tourism aspect still made this game stand out and still push this game up as a positive experience for me. I feel like if they put just a fraction of if they didn't put as much attention to detail into the world, I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much, especially in a state of definitely in a state where I haven't been doing as much traveling as I'd like to be. It's cool to travel within a video game world that's using real life Tokyo as a basis for its design. Ghostwire Tokyo, I think, is going to be B tier. Just because it's open world, I'll put it toward the end, just because it's not my forte, not my main interest. A short hike is a game. It's a game. A short hike is a really cool game. It's one that I feel like is a good entry level into video games for anybody. It's one that I would love to recommend to like a friend or a family member that doesn't normally play games that wants something chill and relaxing. It's got this Animal Crossing aesthetic, and it has you exploring an island, just chatting, passing time. It is a brief experience and it's meant to be nothing more than that. I I'm glad I played a short hike. It blew me away with its simple focus and how easily it achieved that focus of just being a relaxing game to enjoy for about an hour. So a short hike is probably gonna go A tier. Hmm. Let's do Franken. Franken I played at the butt end of me making my The Less You Know The Better video. I was introduced to it on Donkey's video on Franken. And what's really cool about it is it's it's full of jokes. It's acknowledging a lot of the tropes that are in standard RPGs, a lot of things that don't make sense that have just been standard for years and years. Franken takes that and makes fun of it. The writing is hilarious in Franken. It's about I think it's between 1 to 2 hours long. It's something that you can sit down and play in a short span of time, and it's really creative. I think the humor carries it so far. I think it'll go A tier. Space Channel Part 2, I was hanging out with a friend and we were just browsing my Steam library and we saw Space Channel Part 2. Now, I've seen I've seen footage of Space Channel before and I still could never make out what kind of game it was by watching actual gameplay. Turns out it's a really fun, really intense game of Simon Says. Context sensitive to like each level being a different part of the story. And I had a lot of fun with Space Channel, so much so that we played through it twice. I played through it on my own the second time, and I want to hunt down the first Space Channel game and play them both. It's a really good rhythm game. It's a really good Simon Says game. It reminds me a lot of Rhythm Heaven, and it was really good. It just finding a random game on Steam and playing it, and it being Space Channel 5, I got to do that stuff more. Space Channel 5 is gonna go A tier. Short but sweet. That's the other thing. It's very short, but it's part 2. For some reason part 1 is not on Steam. So I'm gonna have to track down the PS2 complete edition that has 1 and 2, or the Dreamcast part 1. Secret of Mana, I think, is gonna be another game that I think I played it at I played it a little bit too late. I acknowledge everything important that Secret of Mana did, but the combat felt so weird to me. It's just like you can play a Super Nintendo game like The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past and swing a sword and connect with an enemy. Secret of Mana has focus on like an energy bar and like pseudo action turn-based mechanics. If you swing a sword in Secret of Mana, you have no idea if you're actually going to hit a target. And that feeling of clunkiness stuck with me throughout the entire game. Only trumped by the fact that you can spam magic for invulnerability and free damage. Like just abusing magic was a main part of the game. I don't know. I didn't want to make a video on it because I didn't really have a lot of good to say about it. And I don't think it's a bad game. I acknowledge what it did for the time, but I feel like it's this in the same boat as Lunar. It's just I recognize how important the game is. I'm glad I played it, but I hope that something better comes from the sequels. It's cool that they remade Secret of Mana on PS4. They remade the Trials of Mana, which I believe is the third game. They also brought the original to the West in the Secret of the Mana collection. So there's ways to play them, and I am interested in visiting Trials of Mana. I'm even interested in revisiting the PS4 version of Secret of Mana just to compare it. And the other cool thing about Secret of Mana, especially for the Super Nintendo, was that it was a multiplayer game. So if I ever revisit Secret of Mana, I'd be happy to do it on PS4 and playing with some friends. I feel like that would be a really good time. But as it stands, my experience with it was just fine. I think I'm gonna put it here above Lunar. Hmm. Let's mix things up a little bit. Let's grab from the middle. Disco Elysium, I think, was the second game that I played this year. Disco Elysium was really fun. It was a game that I played outside of my comfort zone. I don't play a lot of heavy role playing games, and Disco Elysium was a really good introduction, and it was a really good example of it. It uses stats, classes, rolls, dice rolls for different actions. It uses a lot of different things like that in order to simulate a tabletop role playing game in the format of a video game. I think that hurt it a few times because you can't progress certain threads without getting a good roll, and you can't re-roll without upgrading that stat again. So there were the pacing was a little weird for me given me getting bad rolls in certain things. However, it's a game where you can basically do anything with like a billion different options and branching paths. So there's always something to do. The story was one that was good, but requires a lot of focus. If you're sitting down to play Disco Elysium, you need to sit down and pay attention to Disco Elysium. But there was a lot of good characters, really good writing, really good world to just like sit in. And I haven't kept up with the current state. I know that there is some current, I'll just say drama to put it simply. There's like current problems within the leadership of the people who made Disco Elysium. But I hope something can be resolved so that they get a chance to either make a sequel or make a new game using what they've learned from Disco Elysium because I had a lot of fun playing it. I think it's going to go somewhere on A tier, probably right here. Resident Evil Village, I didn't get a chance to play the DLC, but Resident Evil Village was really good. If you don't know, Resident Evil 7 is my favorite Resi game, and re and bringing back Ethan as a character and expanding on a new chapter of his story was really exciting for me. Not only that, but bringing back the first person perspective. I think that I think that taking what they used from 7 and putting it into 8 gave them a lot of time to really perfect item management, combat management, and really push the game in a lot of different ways. I think that one of the really cool things was every chapter of the game was based on like a different type of horror. So there was like stalking with Lady Dimitrescu in the first area. There was a true horror escape room in the second chapter. There was like a B movie swamp horror in the third chapter. And then the fourth chapter was all about that action. It's all about that action thriller combat horror. And so it was really cool seeing a mishmash of a bunch of different horror focuses put into one game using a character that I love, using mechanics that I love. 7 still stands above for me, but 8 is a really good complement to 7 in my opinion. It's gonna go here on A tier. Before Your Eyes is really cool. I did a YouTube short on it, but if you don't know, it's a game that's controlled entirely by your webcam and your ability to blink. It focuses on the fact that moments are fleeting, that you can't really stay in moments forever, just like you can't not blink forever. So it took that concept and made this really touching story that was really memorable for me. It's a game that is entirely story focused, so I don't want to go into the story, but I will say that it used the idea of blinking perfectly with the idea that they were going for, with the concept they were going for. Before Your Eyes is going to be another A tier game. Uncharted staying tall in A tier. Is there anything in A tier that I like more than Uncharted? You know what? Yes. Uncharted 4 is still above, but I did like Resident Evil better than Uncharted. Let's do some management here. We got Outer Wilds S tier, it's staying there. Sekiro right below it, staying there. Uncharted staying. Resident Evil, the following Uncharted games, Disco Elysium, A Short Hike, Franken, and Space Channel. B tier, The Complex sounds good, Fantasy Star sounds good, Monarch sounds good, Ghostwire sounds good there. Amazing Island C tier, somehow ahead of somehow ahead of games like Scott Pilgrim Lunar and Secret of Mana. But this is my list and this is how I feel about it. Pony Island, I think I'll pull down a little bit. We'll do that. I'd still rather play Silent Hill Homecoming over the other ones, as like weird as that sounds. Before Your Eyes, I was gonna put at A tier. Is it better than Uncharted? That's the main question here. Never have I ever played a full series back to back to back to back to back like I did with the Uncharted series. I usually take a break and then revisit the series later on, but I was so interested in it that I just played the games back to back. So I think we got a pretty strong case for Uncharted. Pokemon Colosseum, again, a game that I was graciously gifted, a game that does a lot of really cool things, a game that I thought about doing a video on, but I don't think I would have been able to dig into it as much as I'd like, especially with the long break in streaming that I had between starting it and finishing it. Pokemon Colosseum was really interesting, and the ways that I found it interesting were how it differed from a Pokemon game made by Game Freak. It had a lot, it was completely double battles, it was trainer battle focused. It had this clashing design where you could only catch Pokemon that were shadow Pokemon owned by other trainers, which was my biggest complaint. Where seeing if you're a good trainer that can outskill another trainer and catching a Pokemon are two separate skills, and putting the catching in the trainer battles messed up the pace of the game so much, especially with the fact that they can KO themselves with their signature attack, Shadow Rush. But I thought it was colorful, it was fun. Not really anything that, for me, it wasn't anything super exciting other than the fact that I was playing a new old Pokemon game. I want to revisit Pokemon Gale of Darkness. Not revisit, I want to play it for the first time. And it was cool to play Pokemon Colosseum first. I want to see how they improve the game into Pokemon Gale of Darkness. I think it's going to be B or C. What do I think? I think I'm comfortable putting it here. Obscure. Let's go to Obscure. Obscure is a horror game, a PS2 horror game. There's a lot of good PS2 horror games. Obscure is different because it's a co-op horror game, survival horror. I was able to play Obscure in the past via emulation. I later got a copy of the game and I played it this year with a friend. So it's actually my second time playing Obscure. I think I enjoyed it a lot more with a friend. I think there is a lot of really, it's hard. The game starts out being really hard. It's survival horror and they don't give you a lot to start with. And I think that's how those games are supposed to go. The further that you get in a survival horror game, the more stocked up you get, the more prepared you get, but also the harder enemies. So I think the game started out really difficult, and we had to abuse saves in the same way that, like, I don't know, like the Resident Evil 1 remake is, where you kind of experiment with the game, then you load a save, and then you efficiently play through the game. I don't think there was anything flawed with it, but it's something that you kind of have to disclaim beforehand, is like the game is more fun playing with another person. The game is harder playing with another person because you're sharing resources. But the game does continue along its survival horror path where things get easier, things get fun. Um, I had a lot of fun with Obscure. I think I would probably enjoy it more than maybe some other people. But if you're really into survival horror, especially if you have a friend that's into survival horror and you want to play a new game, Obscure is right there. Not a lot of games to this day made a co-op survival horror. It's got a lot of fixed camera angles that hurt it in the sense that you're controlling two people. If it had better camera controls, better camera angles, things like that, the game needs work. It's not perfect, but I really respect it for what it did, especially at the time. I think it's gonna go high B, honestly, like right here. That's probably a good spot for it. I would have put it at A if I was really feeling it today. Doki Doki Literature Club, I don't know how to rank. How do you rank Doki Doki? Especially if you know what it's about before you go in. I played it to get footage for my Less You Know the Better video. And I knew what it was going in, and I still like the concept, but I don't know how to rank it. So I guess I have to rank it based on how it was received generally, rather than just me. Because it really blew up when it first came out. People were in love with Doki Doki. People were streaming it, sharing it. And that was part of my conversation of including it in the video was, yes, a game can be spoiled for you, but watching other people playing it, sharing it with other people, watching another person play it is just as important of an experience as playing it for yourself. And I think that that's really important. So I suppose I'll rank it here, given that, yes, I played the game knowing about it, but its impact has caused a lot of people to seek it out on their own or be shared it by another person. Is this tier list your personal opinions or general opinions too? A lot of it is personal opinions. Personal opinions outweigh general opinions. I think it's going to be like 80 to 90% personal, and then I'm always considering Doki Doki. I think is the exception to the rule because, like I said, I like the idea of Doki Doki rather than playing it myself because I knew what it was about going into it. Which I can bring in my next video where I can bring in the next game that I made as a conversation about the less you know the better. Buddy Simulator 1984 I think was probably my favorite game I played this year. If not for Outer Wilds, but maybe still including Outer Wilds. I think I'm going to put Buddy Simulator, I'm going to dethrone the king Outer Wilds. And the reason I'm going to do that, Buddy Simulator 1984 is the game that after I played it, I wanted to make that video the less you know the better. Buddy Simulator 1984 is about the game that you're playing is you talking with an AI, and that AI is creating games for you to play. So you, the player, are interacting with you, the computer, and then interacting with like the AI within the game and playing the games. So it evolved into this really interesting conversation between the player, the person, and the AI. And not only that, the games that were within it were fun. So I can't really talk too much about why I liked Buddy Simulator 1984, but I hope that me recommending it to you, knowing that we are dethroning Outer Wilds, a game that was one of the best games I've played in the past few years, means something. Because what Buddy Simulator did that put it above Outer Wilds was be unique and really explore, not be unique. What Buddy Simulator 1984 did was surprise me again and again. Again and again. Like it just constantly surprised me. Outer Wilds did the same thing, but Buddy Simulator, there was this fourth wall conversation to be had that always kept me interested in continuing the game. Chrono Trigger, honestly, like, I played it for the first time this year. I knew it was critically acclaimed. It's still one of the best JRPGs ever made. I want to live in a timeline where more games, more JRPGs took influence from Chrono Trigger instead of just Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. I feel like Chrono Trigger broke free of the rigid constraints of a linear story, um, linear gameplay, and became something truly unique with its branching paths, different timelines, characters each with their own story affecting different time periods. They showed that you can make a JRPG and have it not be so rigidly linear. They also got rid of grinding. There's barely any grinding, if none at all, in Chrono Trigger, whereas that's like a staple of JRPGs these days. I'm just so surprised with Chrono Trigger, and I want to see more influence. Outer Wilds and Buddy Simulator are still better than it. That's how I feel. Better than Chrono Trigger. No, like I said, these are about these rankings are about my personal experience with these games and how much they stood out to me. The same way that I did Final Fantasy VI last year, I knew what I was getting into with Chrono Trigger. I was still blown away, but playing something like Outer Wilds and Buddy Simulator for the first time and not knowing what to expect, and then being blown away as much as I was able to, it like really says something. Now it's getting tough. So 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim was another game that really stood out to me. It's got an amazing story. It I think the best part about 13 Sentinels for me, so it's two things. It's a pseudo tower defense, and it is a visual novel. And with the visual novel part, it is just a really good story with really good characters, with so many characters that each get their own amount of development and time, and a gameplay mechanic of literally patching together a timeline because you're viewing these events in random order. And when you experience these events and in turn, like the tower defense battles, you're putting together a timeline of events that you revisit, catalog, and figure out what exactly is going on. Also, an S tier soundtrack. You're right. So with 13 Sentinels, I think the things that stood out to me with 13 Sentinels were the final chapter, which I won't spoil or talk about, um, and just the really solid and unique story. Not solid, the really spectacular and thought out story and unique story. I'll put it there. I think that's a good spot for it. Mother 3 was a game I played for the second time. Mother 3, the reason that it's on this list, even though I've already played it, is because I played it for the first time in high school. I wanted to revisit it with a I wanted to revisit it with a more critical eye, and surprisingly, it's still just as good as I remembered it being. Mother 3 has fantastic writing, characters, story, world. It's a JRPG. The story is some of the most important part, is one of the most important parts of the game, and it delivers on everything. It has really fun combat, it has a really interesting world, interesting characters. And while it uses the framework of a JRPG, it uses it in such a lighthearted manner, but it's not afraid to get serious. One of my favorite moments in Mother 3 is at the end of the first chapter. It says, "Hey, by the way, this is a tragedy that we're telling you. Like, this is like shit's gonna get real." And it tells such a happy story. It tells such a tragic story in a positive way. And I think that is what makes the game stand out. If you haven't played Mother 3 and you have the option to do it, Play Mother 3. You will not be disappointed. It's gonna go in S tier. I just have to figure out where. I like it better than Chrono Trigger. Not fair. It's a lot of personal preference, is why I like it more than Chrono Trigger. I think Chrono Trigger is a better game, but I just love Mother Three's aesthetic. I love it a lot. Pokemon Violet and Pokemon Scarlet is probably the longest conversation to have because I skipped Arceus, I skipped the Diamond and Pearl remakes. I played Sword and Shield, and in my opinion, it's one of my least Sword and Shield is my least favorite Pokemon game. I think it's like noticeably worse than what was my previous least favorite, which was X and Y. With Pokemon, a lot of like Pokemon games are generally all great games. When you compare them, you have this like kind of toxic conversation because you're comparing really good games to slightly less really good games. I think the only games that have like a noticeable drop off I thought was X and Y, but X and Y and Diamond and Pearl are the two games right now that are I'm the least familiar with. I played them once and I haven't played them again. I want to revisit them at some point so that I can have a better opinion of them. But when it came to Sword and Shield, it was obvious to me that there were problems. And so I felt burned, but I had this tinfoil hat conspiracy where the second Pokemon game of every console gen is the good one. So you've got starting with like the DS, I think it's the first time where they started doing two gens a console. Diamond and Pearl is like lower, is like in the middle for me. Black and White and Black and White 2 are my favorite gen. Then you have the 3DS X and Y, I thought was on the lower half. And then Sun and Moon, in my opinion, is like my second favorite gen. You have Heart Gold and Soul Silver on the DS that I forgot to mention that are just the best remake of Gen 2. Then you have, I guess, the Switch where Sword and Shield, again, I talked about how much I disliked Sword and Shield. I was like, this is my time. If this fits the mold, then it's going to be good. It's going to be at the, it's going to be one of the good ones. And it released, and I'm mixed on it. Obviously, there's a big asterisk because of the performance issues. The performance issues in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet make the game unplayable for some people, as far as sometimes it crashes. The frame rate is not consistent, it dips so far down. But once you get into the main gameplay loop, I started to have a lot of fun. I've played Pokemon in the past just interested in tough gym battles and tough trainer battles. Elite Four trying to be the best there ever was, etc. I was never interested in completing the Pokedex, and I think seeing Pokemon roam the overworld and seeing evolutions of them roam the overworld really mixed things up for me. Now, what was a hassle trying to complete the Pokedex, like trying to get into random encounters, hoping you see a Pokemon in that encounter. Now, when you're just naturally exploring through the game, you just see Pokemon in their natural habitat doing whatever they do with a surprising amount of detail into how they behave in the overworld. I talked about it before, but things like Ditto is transformed into another Pokemon. Electrodes explode in the wild. Some Pokemon are hanging from trees like Pineco. A lot of the water Pokemon are swimming, doing their own thing. They actually, I think, took one big step forward, just showing how Pokemon behave in the wild. Salazar and Tauros are running and roaming in the world. So it really made collecting them all a viable option for me because it didn't feel tedious. It just felt like a natural part of the game. And I think the supporting cast in this game were all really good. I liked Nimona the rival. I liked Arvin. I think he had the best story into the final chapter. And Team Star were basically like the theater kids getting bullied and fighting back. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more done with Team Star, especially because their mini game when you like storm their bases is just super bad. I just don't know how to sugarcoat it. It was not good. So like Team Star was kind of a bust, but it always ended in a really tough battle. The I guess the balancing is another thing. So like trainer battles in the overworld have one, two, at max three Pokemon, and they're usually like the game is really unbalanced because of how open it is. I wish there were certain ways to rebalance like the trainers that are just in the wild doing their own thing, so that there's some reason to challenge them other than getting TMs for beating them all. Um, I kind of justified that by the game is super unbalanced through the main adventure, but once you beat the main adventure, you're able to re-challenge all the gym leaders, but with harder teams. You're able to do the final tournament, and you're also able to re-challenge the Team Star members. So the idea for me is like the main adventure is building out your team and figuring out what you want on a team. And even they made a surprising amount of progress with competitive because it's always been really hard to build a team for competitive. And while I still don't think it's easy here, I think that making a lot of mints that change Pokemon's natures, making the battle caps to raise their other hidden stats accessible, expensive but accessible, and having a lot of competitive held items available for purchase with normal money really opened the game up to let me get like a pseudo competitive team before the end of the main game, which has never happened before in Pokemon. For something like that, you normally have to get like a ROM hack Pokemon adventure. And so you're able to build the team in a way that I like, but you're not able to test your team in a way that I like. And so once you beat the main adventure, you're able to re-challenge everything. And I think that that is a really nice band-aid to that problem. So I had a lot more fun than I thought I would playing Pokemon Violet and Scarlet. It's my most played Switch game, which not that I you can see here there's a lot of Switch games on the list, but it does mean a lot where I enjoyed playing through the game. I enjoyed the gameplay loop. I enjoyed catching Pokemon. I might actually complete my Pokedex for the first time ever. So, despite its flaws, I had a lot of enjoyment with Pokemon. I hope that it can be fixed, and I hope that the performance can be fixed. And I personally want a little bit more out of a Pokemon story than what was given to me here. But I ended up liking all the characters that were in it. So like that says something. So I think Pokemon might go on B tier here because despite its flaws, I surprisingly had a good time with it. So there you have it. This is my list of all of the games that I played throughout 2022. Gonna go through them one more time here to see if I want to move anything around. Not mad at B tier. Yeah, let's go through them one more time. So S tier, Buddy Simulator 1984, must play. Outer Wilds, must play. Mother 3, must play. Chrono Trigger, Sekiro, must plays. 13 Sentinels, I think you have to be into visual novels and like the different the anime quirkiness. There's a little bit one more of a barrier there. But the game is definitely S tier. I had a lot of fun playing 13 Sentinels. Uncharted 4 absolutely I think stands above the other Uncharted games. You have Resident Evil Village, the rest of the Uncharted games, Before Your Eyes, Disco Elysium, A Short Hike, Franken, Space Channel, Doki Doki, Pokemon, Obscure, The Complex, Phantasy Star, Monarch, Ghostwire, Pokemon, Amazing Island at C tier, Silent Hill Homecoming, Secret of Mana, Pony Island, Lunar, and Scott Pilgrim. So that's my list. Thank you so much for checking it out. No. Now you can have music again. Hoping Atlas releases a good game this year. I still have to decide if I want to play Soul Hackers too. I think I might try to revisit an older game first. So we'll see what I can do with this, see if I can turn this and edit this into a good YouTube video that's fit for the main channel, but we'll see. I want to try to get my Devil May Cry video done as well. So how much is here? We have the Game Awards announcements to go over. Sonic the Hedgehog has more content. More footage for Project L. Mario Kart. What is this? Oh, Strikers update. And then I put Ranked Slippy. Please stream DMC5. I think I want to get to it this year, because I had so much fun with 4. So it's a possibility. That's on the table. So I'm going to start with the Game Awards announcements. And then we'll not pick and choose, but we'll go through everything else after that. Because this is the biggest section. So Destiny 2, don't care about. Genshin, don't care about. We're going to skip the kid. Elden Ring, Game of the Year. Talk about that. Biggest announcements. Is this just... I saved a link that said this is all the announcements that happened, to be given another link where this is the biggest announcements. Let's see. Yeah, we can use this list. Let's do that. Stop. Leave me alone. Alright. So Hellboy Web of Weird. Mike Mignola is making a Hellboy video game with Upstream Arcade, Good Shepherd Entertainment, and Dark Horse Comics. The self-shaded Hellboy Web of Weird is coming to Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, no release date. I saw this, it has a really cool art style. I'm interested to see more about the game. I don't know anything about the Hellboy series, so that's not something you're gonna come to me for, but I like the lighting and the cell shading. I think it looks really good. It shows a little bit of combat. I'm not familiar with any of these names as far as the development teams. Among Us Hide and Seek. I heard this was a fan game mode that they made official, which I really like seeing. Kind of like how Halo added Griffball in the past. Street Fighter 6 release date. I was going to say, what is the release date? It's right here. 2023. Hades 2, I'm super excited about. We went and looked at my list of best games that I played last year, and Hades was at the very top of that list. Now, I remember when Hades 1 was in early access before its full release, and I believe that they announced they're doing the same thing here, because there's a lot that goes into balancing a game like this. So I'm happy they're doing it. I'm excited to see all the new developments, but I probably won't check the game out myself until its full release, which will probably be, some years from now, which is fine. BioShock creator announces Judas. This is also a game that I'm super excited about. I'm a big fan of BioShock 1 and 2, and I'm not in the loop with what's going on with the creator, but I heard that they were making a new game. Let me see if I can get... It looks really interesting visually. It looks gorgeous. And it looks like it's trying to be a spiritual successor in the same way that Callisto Protocol is. And I mean that before we found out that the game wasn't so great. So I hope this game will be good. I don't know if I can handle a new BioShock-like game to be bad. Because this looks like BioShock. but having it take place in like a new space and a new universe and a new story looks really, I think it's a good call. So I'm interested in this game, you know, a lot. This I thought was really cool. I remembered hearing that Hideki Kamiya wanted to make like either 6 total or 6 more. I think it was 6 more Bayonetta games. And that kind of like caught me off guard. And then I saw this, and this makes a lot more sense. It's cool that they're making 6 more Bayonetta games, but some of them are spin-offs with different gameplay styles attached to them. So that we kind of get more from the Bayonetta universe, but we're not like ringing the money horse. I don't know if that's a phrase. We're not ringing the money horse to see how many Bayonetta beat 'em ups we can make. We're just doing like a storybook thing, which I think is a really cool idea. Because the same with how I feel about Devil May Cry, the characters in both DMC and Bayonetta are what make these games stand out beyond their really good combat. Without it, their stories would be fairly generic. So seeing a game focus on a Bayonetta story, in addition to, you know, mixing up the type of game that it is, I'm really excited. It has me really refreshed to see that they're like doing something different with Bayonetta, that it's not just an action beat 'em up. This was really cool. I mean, all you need to do is say it's a Metroidvania. Even up beyond that, it's from the creators of Celeste. So I'm really interested. I think they already did a live stream, the Celeste creators. They already did a live stream showing off some aspects of this game. But I love Metroidvanias. I want to play more. I think I should probably like play a bunch this year if I have the time. So just the genre and the makers of Celeste, it's like, yeah, Dean, take my money. This was surprising. I'm surprised that Death Stranding 2 is getting a sequel. I'm happy for it. I was one of the ones who really liked Death Stranding. My only complaint with Death Stranding was that its pacing was really slow. I think it's a game that that story could have been told in a shorter time frame than what it was. But other than that, I didn't really have any complaints. Like, it's Kojima's story, so it's like wacky, crazy, hard to follow. Like, not really a something I dislike about it. It's just like, same with like me playing Disco Elysium. Like, if you sit down and play a game like Death Stranding or Disco Elysium, you need to sit down and listen and experience it. So it's surprising to see, for me it's surprising just to see the reveal, not that it was just too soon. I thought Kojima was going to work on other projects, because the other thing I heard was a horror game that was in the works. So maybe they're doing both, who knows. But, you know, it has me excited. Maybe I'll try to do the director's cut of Death Stranding before this comes out, because I played the original, I didn't play the director's cut, and they seem to add a lot to it, including more traditional Metal Gear like gameplay, which I thought was a really cool idea. Tekken 8. I don't know if there's really anything here for me to comment on. Diablo 4, Mario movie. This I missed during the announcement. I had to step away. I heard it was a party game. Crash Bandicoot returns with a new multiplayer action game, Crash Team Rumble. Players will beat up each other as they fight for Wampa Fruit. Does it have gameplay? Looks like a online focused. So not really, no, not really gameplay. Crash has a lot of characters. It's a battle royale? Oh no. How many? It looks like a 4v4, not a battle royale. Crash has a lot of characters in its roster. So I bet it'd be cool to have like a class-based game with the roster of Crash. Doesn't seem like a bad idea. I just want to know more about it. Cyberpunk DLC, Armored Core. This is exciting. Not exciting for me only because I haven't played Armored Core. It's really cool that FromSoft is making another Armored Core game because they've only made Souls-like games in the past, like, I don't know. When did Dark Souls 1 come out? In the past decade? Yeah, in the past, like, decade. They've released a lot of games, actually. All Souls games. But it's cool that they're revisiting Armored Core. I hope that this game is good. And I heard from Big B in our Discord that you don't really need to experience the earlier games because so much of the content is brought into the newer games. So maybe it's a reason to check it out. I feel like because of the success of Souls, people are gonna say, hey, this is FromSoft, like I'm gonna check this out. So there might be like an entirely new audience coming to this game because of their past 10 years of Souls-like games. So I'm excited. I want to see more. I have never gotten into Armored Core. I'm open to get into Armored Core. And Final Fantasy 16 release date is in the summer of next year. Interesting. Ooh, Big B has more links. All right, let's check things out. Let's do this. Let's see if I can open all of them so I don't miss anything like last time. Okay. So this was interesting. How do you feel about this, Chuck? I'm always conflicted with things like this because this is a single player game. I'm excited that it's continuing to get new content, and all of this is free also. But it's weird to have such big additions like playable characters and a new story. It feels like some of this stuff is an afterthought when it comes to a single player game. Because I want, if you're going to tell a single player story, then like adding things after the fact isn't always a bad idea. But I want the game to release in a good state. And I feel like there were certain things that Frontiers fans didn't like the reuse of environments in the cyberspace. Other than that, like, I don't think a lot of hardcore Sonic fans didn't have a lot of big complaints. Yeah, like, focus on the main release. I'm not opposed, so like a lot of this is quality of life stuff, like a sound test, a photo mode. Challenge mode is just going to be like remixed versions of existing levels. So like fine, free, great, it's going to make for a better game. Update to Sonic's birthday, I guess is some more missions, open zone challenge, like more missions in the open zones. New, the Cocos I think are just collectibles, aren't they? Like you see them in the overworld and pick them up, like Koroks. But the playable characters in the story is weird to me. I've always liked, so this is like more general, not just with this new update, but I've always liked the more serious tone for a Sonic game when it comes to their story. Like Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2. I don't even hate Sonic 06 idea for a story. And so after Sonic Colors, they've strayed away from telling like a more serious story. And it's cool that this game seems to approach that, but doesn't seem to, I don't know. Because there's a sense of realism when it comes to the games that I mentioned previously. Like, they all take place in like the equivalent of a real world. And this game is completely in like a separate space. And it doesn't feel like it has the same gravity. I've never played Sonic Frontiers, so I should also like stop really trying to dig in. I don't have anything negative to say about this roadmap. It's cool that it's all free and it seems like quality of life stuff. The new characters and the new story is obviously the most interesting. This I watched on my own time. They show more gameplay. They show the tag team aspects for for Project L. I'm still interested in it. I like the tag team. I think they said that they're going to incorporate like a co-op where each player is one of the characters, which would be really cool. It'd be cool to like queue up with a friend and do matchmaking like that. I don't think this video changes my opinion about anything. I trust that they're going to make a good game, especially with their previous game, Rising Thunder, right? Rising Thunder? Rising Thunder. Yeah, they made Rising Thunder and then moved to this team. So I'm interested. I'm really interested to play this game, to dig in deep, and it's using the League IP. It's a Riot game, so it's probably going to have a high install base, which I think is going to be the best for me in terms of like finding people in matchmaking that are my skill level. Because a lot of fighting games that aren't the most popular ones, their player base falls off. So the best time to play them is when they come out, which is also when those games go through a lot of their bigger changes. A game at the end of its developer support looks completely different from what it was at the beginning. Like, take a look at Dragon Ball FighterZ, how that was on release to how it is now. And so this game will probably never have an end of support. And again, it being like a Riot IP, it seems like a really fun game that I can just get into at my own pace and still have like a proper matchmaking. It seems like they know what they're doing. Again, I never played Rising Thunder, but I'm a fan of the concept of it. And I hope that they take their time and they make a good game, and it gets the love and support it deserves. This is crazy to me. It's crazy that Mario Kart 8, a game that came out in like 2017. Not 2017. Wii U 2014. A game that came out in 2014 is getting quality of life additions. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, they're waiting till now to add custom item features. They absolutely should have done this. I'm so glad that this is in the game. It should have been done sooner. Now they need to tackle battle mode. They fixed battle mode from the Wii U version to the Switch version because the Wii U didn't even have battle maps. It would just let you race on just normal race courses, but like forward and backward, and it was awful. So from the Switch version, they added actual arena tracks, but they don't have any options for battle mode, whether it be balloon battle without time, because balloon battle was basically stock if you compare it to a fighting game. Like, you lose 3 balloons, you're out for good, your team's out for good. What they did in Mario Kart 8 was add a timer to that, and you can lose your 3 balloons, but then you respawn with more balloons. So it's like, what's the point? Like, what's unique about balloon battle that's not just like a time battle? So I like that they're getting quality of life additions to this. This is awesome. They need to keep going. Like, just keep going. Keep going strong. I haven't played the new tracks yet, no. 2.2 is out. In addition to the publicized stuff, getting hit by lightning no longer cancels your glider. Invincibility period after getting hit now changes depending on your kart parts and driver. Like, why are they making these like balance changes and like quality of life changes now? It's so weird. I love it, but it's just so weird to me. It's crazy. Like, they rebalanced lightning from a game released in 2014. Like, good for them. Go. I love that. I talked about how I was disappointed in Strikers before. Now they've added my favorite character in a free update, Bowser Jr., so that's exciting. It's not going to convince me to play this game again. I'm probably never going to play this game again. I bought it on release and I do regret it. I loved Strikers on the GameCube and Charged on the Wii, and this game has so much less appeal and less content compared to those games that it was disappointing. Yeah, I'm glad you sent that to me because I wouldn't have found out otherwise. I love Bowser Jr. My little Goblin Boy. So like, I like Bowser's design. Bowser has, I think, one of the best video game character designs. But when I play like a Mario Party or a Mario Kart or like a fighter or something, I don't want to play the big heavy character. So having a character like Bowser in like a pint-sized tiny character, like Bowser Jr. is made for me. I love him a lot. He's a little brat, but I love him. Slippy ranked. Also, final free update. Wait. For this? I didn't read that. The final free update. What does that mean? Is the player base even there? Can they chart? Can they do that? I feel like I gotta know how many people are playing this game now. That's crazy. Is there a link to this? I was hoping for like an announcement link, but this is just detail. I'll go over it briefly. Slippy, the online rollback Smash Brothers Melee, is now getting ranked, which is really exciting for the scene. Just getting rollback was really important during, we got it during COVID lockdowns. So it allowed people to get a much better connection when playing online to support the Smash scene. It allowed people to host better tournaments online. And now we're getting a ranked mode, which, correct me if I'm wrong, there's always been a way to rank players during, I think it was their tournament results, but there was never a way to rank players within just normal matchmaking. I guess there would be no way to do it. Because I know there's a way that Slippy tracks some of your stats. Like, some of the Slippy tournaments that they've had in the past have said, like, this is how much damage you dealt, this is how many times you grabbed the ledge. So there's a way to track all that information. But I don't think there was a way to rank players other than having them participate in certain in-person or online events. So having a way to have a separate ranking within Slippy matchmaking is really... It is such a really important thing for the scene. They had a hidden SR, but it wasn't perfect for matching you against similar players. Okay. I mean, maybe some of this will be obvious, but just being able to have something to push for, having something to compare, having something for matchmaking, just being able to rank your progress is important in any competitive game, and having it brought to Melee just continues to help the Melee community. Again, I haven't played Melee as much as I'd like to in recent time, but I am always forever thankful for the people within the scene that do these crazy things to keep it going. From Fizzy to the tournament organizers to the players to people who help fund to like people like Ludwig who host tournaments every time some Nintendo drama goes down. Even like when there was Free Smash, like the Splatoon players changed their names to like Free Smash and Melee and Wave Dash and all that stuff, and then they had to cancel like the official Nintendo organized Splatoon Fest because people were just leaving it out of protest. I think all that stuff helps solidify Smash as this like grassroots close-knit community that doesn't need Nintendo to keep going. So just I wanted to take some time to acknowledge that rank has been added, even though there's like nothing I have to really add to it. Yeast X announced for PS5, PS4, and Switch. I thought there was like 20 of these games. Is this a re-release? How do you get into this series? I feel like it's one they renew. Oh, okay. How do you get into this series, Big B? This is one that I've always heard of. They're always really cheap on Steam through sales and stuff, but one that I've never really like heard people talk about. So 8 just got a PS5 remaster. Ooh, okay. 9 is also getting a PS5. Okay. It seems like they're always supporting it, but I don't hear people talk about it. Falcom has announced Ys X Nordics for PS5, PS4, and Switch, the latest entry coming out next year in Japan. The battle system used up until Ys 9 has been drastically revamped. Allows players to fight using 2 modes according to situation. Speedy solo mode. I like the visuals. Those are all the screenshots. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for it. Again, this is a Japan only 2023, so there's probably going to be plenty of time for more news to come out about the game and its like actual full release date. And then Ys Memoir announced for Switch, also sometime next year. So I'm sure there'll be more articles coming out talking about updates to these games. 8 is considered the best in the series, so it's a good starting point. Okay, that's good to know. But here, this is the remaster. Fully voiced event scenes, voiceovers for Adol, graphics and sound, switch between 3 sound settings. The original version, PC 8801 version, and 86,000 version. I like multiple soundtracks. That's one of my favorite things about remakes, when they include multiple soundtracks. High speed mode, beginner friendly support features. I like all those changes for a remaster. That seems cool. Ooh. Thanks for watching to the end. Consider subscribing to the channel for more videos like this, and subscribe to the second channel for live stream uploads. I live stream on Twitch, and I also have a Discord. If you really like my content, please consider sending a tip on Ko-fi. All tips go back into my content by purchasing games for future videos or live streams. Links to all of these platforms can be found in the description below.